We'll be starting shortly, but I've been tasked with the duty to give a short charge. And before I do that, I'm just going to introduce myself. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, thank you. So my name is Ololade Okedare. I'm a Nigerian, and I like to refer to myself as both a guardian of narratives and a midwife of dreams. As a story consultant and writer-producer, my journey is dedicated to a singular vision, which is to discover and champion emerging African storytellers. I do this through my story development outfit, which is called Emerge Story Company. And Emerge is much more than just discovering writers. It's also about mentoring them and helping them take their stories from ideas to scripts and eventually funneling them through a talent representation and then eventually staffing them on shows with studios and streamers. So I'm just going to go quickly into this short charge because I feel that this introduction is necessary to pivot into our conversation today. This is a passionate topic for me, and I think this short charge is just a rally to everyone in the room. And we're so glad that you're here. I want to believe that you're on the same page with us. All right. That said, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues and fellow advocates of creative justice, I stand before you today with an unwavering belief that as an industry, words are the foundation upon which our dreams are built, and African writers are the architects of these dreams. I'm deeply honored to be part of this remarkable event where we gather not just as participants, but as catalysts for change, as champions for the unsung heroes who weave the narratives that light up our screens and spark up our imaginations. In the heart of Cape Town, at the crossroads of culture and innovation, we convene for Film Week MIP Africa to address an issue that resonates not only within the confines of this room, but across continents and artistic realms. Our purpose is as clear as it is profound: to empower African writers towards compensation and recognition. So we unite under the banner of shared values, determined to transcend borders, languages, and backgrounds, to uplift the creative souls whose words transcend the mundane and breathe life into cinematic wonders. Today, our gathering takes place against the backdrop of an ongoing industrial strike by the Writers Guild of America, a stark reminder that the pens that script our narratives and ignite our emotions are wielded by individuals, not mere cogs in an industrial machine. This strike is not just an isolated event, it is a vivid manifestation of the universal struggle for equitable acknowledgement and remuneration for those who craft the very essence of storytelling. Imagine, if you will, a motion picture without words, and I don't mean a silent movie. Imagine a canvas devoid of color and a symphony lacking melody. In the world of cinema, writers are the nucleus, the gravitational force that pulls all creative energies together, converting ideas into action and words into visual splendor. They are the architects of our cinematic dreams, the sculptors of dialogue that echo across generations, and the keepers of cultural legacies that bind us. So what's our mission here today? We convene today with an urgent call to action. Our pursuit is threefold. Number one, professional standards. Two, proper crediting. And three, fair compensation. We advocate for a world where every writer, regardless of their background, is treated with respect and dignity. A world where their contributions are properly acknowledged and their creations, once set in motion, reward them beyond their initial endeavors. As we delve into our discussions, we will explore the dimensions of fair compensation rates and residuals across theatrical and streaming windows, which are crucial aspects of an ecosystem that sustains the very heart that we revere. The cause we champion today is not a solitary endeavor. It's a collective responsibility. It transcends industries and borders, weaving a tapestry of unity that stretches from the bustling streets of Lagos to the vibrant avenues of Hollywood. We gather in the spirit of collaboration, not confrontation, in pursuit of progress and not protest, at least not yet. And our aim is to create an environment that empowers African writers, ensuring that their invaluable contributions are not just acknowledged, but celebrated and fairly rewarded. So as we embark on this journey, remember that each word we speak, each discussion we ignite, carries the potential to reshape an industry, empower lives, and leave an indelible mark on the creative landscape. Let us be the change agents who make the dreams of writers come true, and not just on the screen, but in the lives they live, the families they support, and the futures they shape. Together, let us wield the pen's power to illuminate the path towards fairness, recognition, and creative justice for African writers. Let us be the advocates who amplify their voices and the architects who construct a more equitable creative realm for these African writers. Thank you for being a part of this momentous journey, a journey that promises to reshape the narrative one word at a time. Thank you very much. And so I'm going to now go into the crucial conversation with my panelists. Thank you, thank you. I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself because the profiles are quite long. So I have with me the pleasure to have with me here Mehret Mandefro, Ayobola, Eniola, Tracey-Lee, Mimi Bartels, Bongi. Welcome, thank you. We literally waylaid her and got her the last minute. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Zoe Ramushu. So please, let's go this way. Please introduce yourself.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, thank you. My name is Ayobola Eniola, co-founder and partner at Kinsman Studios and Imaginary Company, where, of course, we work with emerging writers
This is your brother.
build their stories, find their voices, and bring their dreams to life on screen. Thank you.
Amazing, thank you.
Hi everyone, Mehret Mandefro, producer, writer, CEO of TBTM Studios, and also co-founder of Realness Institute.
Amazing.
Hi, Tracey-Lee, owner of Story Oasis, the development hub. I'm a story practitioner and very happy to be here.
Amazing, thank you.
Mimi Bartels. I don't own anything. I'll be back here one day as a co-founder, CEO. I generally manage FilmOne Studios. I'm the GM for the studios. Basically, premium Nollywood content. If you've ever heard of it, I most likely produced it, EP'd it, or storied it. I don't know. At this point, I do everything. But yes, that's who I am.
Amazing.
Hi. Hello, my name is Bongindaba. I'm the vice chair of the Writers Guild South Africa. On my creative side, my business is writing. I produce and I write.
Amazing, thank you.
Hi, I'm Zoe Ramushu. I'm a producer, showrunner, and writer outside of my production company, which is called Totem Zia. I also co-founded SWIFT, which is a women's organization, and do a lot of other lobbying for my sins.
We need the lobbyists.
Yeah.
All right, welcome. So let's get right into it. We're going to be discussing parallels between the WGA strike and our industry, the learnings we can take from that strike and what we should be preparing for. But, you know, as an introduction, for those who've not been following the strike, this is not the first. In fact, it's about the third, if I'm correct. In 1988, they striked for 153 days. And what was the reason? It was about creative rights and residual payments for writers. The writers were demanding better compensation for the reuse and resale of their work, including in foreign markets and on cable TV. They got that. And then in late 2007 and 2008, they also striked for 100 days, actually. And what was the reason? This time it was a dispute between the Writers Guild of America and the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers over issues related to compensation again, specifically regarding payments for digital content, DVDs, and new media. And now in 2023, they started the strike again May 2nd. That's about almost 90-something days now. And what's the issue this time around? It's about residuals from streaming media, and WGSA, they want to have shares, of the residuals basically. But what I can see that has been constant across these three is that with every technological or whatever advancement they've had in their industry, there's always been a call for a fair compensation for the writers. But thinking about our own industry, what do you think we've done in terms of keeping up with the advancements of our industry and ensuring that writers are well paid for that?
Sorry, who are you asking?
So I'm going to start with Bongi, please.
When it comes to Writers Guild, of course we are in solidarity with the Writers Guild in America because we are all part of an international body of Writers Guild. What they are fighting for, what we always talk about is that it's what we've been living ever since we were in this industry in South Africa. The residuals, we've become so, we accept not to get residuals. We don't expect to get them because it's what has been happening in South Africa. But is it correct? It is not correct. So that is why the Writers Guild, we're going hard now to say we need to come together so that we can also stand to fight for these things, because we should be getting, even before the streamers came, our own channels, local channels, you just don't get residuals. It's very few people that will say, oh, I got residuals for this and that. We just don't get residuals. And we have come to accept it, and it's not something that we should accept. Our members should know, even people who haven't joined the Writers Guild, the industry should know that that is not the right thing. So it's good that it's highlighted in Hollywood, but it's what we've been living. And my fear personally is that we've been so used to it in such a way that we don't even think that it's a travesty.
Wow. Ayobola, do you want to say something about this? Drawing parallels between WGA and our industry in Nigeria and Africa generally?
Well, just looking at the parallels between the three strikes that's happened over the years.
Okay.
There's a maxim in the industry that says it takes a village to make a film, right? So it means that everybody across the value chain is important. But when it comes to compensation, that maxim doesn't really hold, because writers are always like the least along the value chain that really gets considered in terms of what they bring to the table and what they should take from it. And so in our space here in Africa, or specifically to Nollywood, I've written more in Nollywood, or the few I've written or privileged to write. And even from just colleagues and friends and what we just, the sense of what we have is really about, if you get a good pay, you're lucky. You have to have had certain credits or certain pedigree to be able to earn a certain amount of money. Otherwise, they're just like, peanuts, as it were. And residuals obviously don't talk about it. It's not even on the table. And like she said, it's a travesty because producers won't invest, because producers invest, right? Studios invest. And any picture they invest in means it's a picture they believe in. And if you believe in it so much as to put your money in it, and it does really well, then the brain that created it should be fairly compensated. It's just basic. So it should be a win-win for everybody, but somehow writers just never get that win. So we always have to fight for it and strike for it and, picket for it. And that's a real problem. And maybe we've not gotten to that place yet here to picket and all, because our unionization is not that strong. So it's really that, how do we rally everybody around to say this is what we want? And that's like a huge, challenge. And I think that this conversation should be able to lead us there to say, how do we unionize? How do we, lend a collective voice to make a demand? We're not demanding too much, actually. We're demanding what is fair.
Amazing. All right, so I'm going to come to Zoe and Mimi here. Since it seems like writers are looked down upon, can we begin to talk about the importance of writers in the creative process? We should not have to do this, but it seems like it's something we should do I mean, it's obvious, it should be obvious, plain obvious, the importance of writers in the creative process, but I feel like it's something we need to say. So can we talk about that?
Yeah, I'll go first. I think I'm going to lean on something that I actually heard on the first day today. I'll steal from him. It was Nimrod. He was talking about when you have a painting, right? Someone has to supply the brushes, someone has to supply the frame, someone supplies the canvas, but ultimately there's an artist who then puts everything on the page. And even if they've been given a specific mandate, okay, you're going to paint this lovely lady there, you know, what that artist does with the painting is very specific, and it comes from somewhere that's very personal. Yeah. And a lot of the time that is just not valued, that the way I'm going to paint her is different from the way she's going to paint her, she's going to paint her. And that's the value of what artists and writers are basically doing. It's such a privilege, and it should be a pleasure to be able to create like that. But it's become such a painful thing for people because it's almost like you're part of a sausage factory where you're just like part of the system. You're given like a silly amount of time to just create this thing, and then off it goes, and you've got absolutely no idea how it's going to go, where it's going to go. You see it yourself on screen and you're shocked, you know, you basically get lost in the process completely. And I just think that's very, very unfair, you know. And so when we speak about the importance of writers, I think there has to be a spotlight put on them in that way, with that understanding that, yes, AI, I'm sure there's been talks about AI, but AI can write stuff, but they can't write what I know. They can't express what I've felt. We're not, okay, I'm going too far.
We're going to go there. So, Mimi, are we paying lip service to IP? We speak a lot about IP, but then when it comes to the writers that actually create the IP, we treat them like trash. So what do you think?
I'm trying not to get emotional and passionate about this thing, so I'm trying to like... I know. The first question I'll ask, and it's controversial, but I don't care. I'm cool. I'm leaving the country soon. What is fair compensation? Do writers even know what fair compensation is? Do writers even want to receive residuals? And I'll tell you why I ask these questions, because I've worked with writers where I've offered, take a percentage, and they say, no, I just want to collect the money and move on. I tell writers, come to set and see your work so that we don't do rubbish with it. I don't think I can make it. So as much as we're sitting here and fighting for this, there are people that are just like, and I don't blame them because it's abuse. They're used to it at this point. I tried to write something. I was crying. I was like, how do these people do it? And then you say, oh, give me in 3 weeks, give me in 2 weeks. I'm like, I even tried writing my own thing. I don't think I've gotten past the pitch deck, and that's 4 years now. You know, it's insane to me. And then when you even ask them, like, oh, what is your fee? And I'll give an example. I actually had like a writer that sent me their terms. And I was like, do you not understand that I can't function without you? Like, I can't be on set. The only things I have an idea. You are the foundation. You are the architect. So why would you devalue yourself in this way? I'm a producer, yes, but I'm struggling with my budgets as well. But I now have to determine to you what is fair. You don't even understand. So I ended up increasing the residuals on it. I mean, I got some slack for it, but I was going to stand by my... Because ultimately, they don't even... But then, I don't know if it's a Nigeria thing, I don't know if it's an Africa thing, that where I just don't know how to value myself. And that comes from a long time of just being in the system. So to be honest, I'm with the WGA, but I'm fighting fights in my country as well. I just even need to get writers to understand that they're important. Because what the WGA are blessed with is that they're unionized and they understand their value. I'm even having to force it upon you that you matter. I can't function without you, and that's a different hill. I mean, I leave it to you guys to solve. I'll do what I can do.
Yes,
I just want to just add to that. I think what you said, Mimi, is so important, self-worth. valuing yourself, because I think it starts from within, right? But how do you do that when there are external factors, right? So I'm a co-founder of the WGSA, and I remember it was in my early 20s, a long time ago, that I was working in this production company, and I was line producing, directing, doing everything. And I had a mentor, the late Thandi Brewer, who was very close to my heart, and I spent a lot of time with her. And I said to her, it's so sad that the owners of this company don't understand development and the importance of writing and what that means for production. We just basically have budgets and time spent on production and post-production and marketing, but nothing for development. And she said, let's start a guild. And then we went to her farm with Tia and Natasha, and we sat there and we wrote the Constitution. And we decided we are going to call the industry together and we are going to start a guild because we need to educate ourselves about process, about what we can ask for within the parameters of what is happening in the country, right? But also what other guilds, what other associations are doing. And we needed to understand what solidarity really means for us, but also what writing means, and share that information with producers, because some know, some don't, that you just don't go into a room and write a polished script. It takes a while. You have to think about it, you have to research, you have to beat sheet it, you have to outline it. There's a process. And all those stages take time and they cost money, right? So we formed the guild, and it's been there's a guild council member, and they've done great work in the, I think since then to now. I was just talking about membership, it's trebled. What do you want? But it can be more, and I do think it comes with education, information, solidarity, sticking together and talking. So even if you don't have, like I know other countries don't have, Nigeria doesn't have a guild, right? Kenya doesn't have a guild.
We do
You do have a guild, okay. But I think even if it comes down to informal collectives, where you speak about standard rates, when you speak about, look, this producer, because we all know each other in our industries, right? This producer's asking that I write this script for this amount of money, right? I'm saying no, right? And to speak to the other writers in the industry or story practitioners and trying to get to, even if it's informal standards, I think that really, really is important. So we need to speak to each other, and we need to shift the power focus to us, because we are the creatives. As writers, we are the original artists. We need to own that, we need to embrace that, and we need to stick together.
Yeah.
Not divide and conquer. We need to stick together.
Amazing. So I'm going to piggyback on, so for now, let me just mention, we'll use the mic, your mic across, including you and Bongi, please. All right, I just want to piggyback on what you mentioned about self-worth. And I'm going to come to you, Dr. Mehret, because you do such a wonderful work with storytellers in helping them to midwife not just the stories, but even the vulnerabilities, the truth of the writers. What have you found to be true about writers creating their work? The rigors of pushing out something, believing in themselves, and how that affects or impacts this fight or this cause that we're trying to champion.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, can you guys hear me?
No, she needs the mic.
Yeah, okay, I need the mic, okay. So, we're talking about Africa, we're talking about our industries. I come from Ethiopia and have done a lot of work in that market. But I think when it comes to valuing your work, I think this is a battle all artists have to learn. The journey of being an artist is actually putting yourself out there over and over again. It's an experience and a journey into vulnerability. And when you do that, I think it opens yourself up, for critique, for judgment. And so that is the battle, actually, right? I mean, we can talk about it from the perspective of writers in Nigeria or South Africa, but I think the journey of being an artist is this battle. And then how do you confront the market? How do you bring this vision to market? The rub is always between art and commerce. It's not just us who battle this. The painters battle it. I'm always having these conversations across all of the disciplinary boundaries because I collaborate with artists often. And so I think what we have to understand is we have an unprecedented opportunity right now. And I think what the strike, because I also work in America, is about revaluing the market, right? We've gotten to a point in the global ecosystem. When the strike happened in 2008, what ended up happening is unscripted became mainstream, right? That's what happened last time. But then look what happened to the documentary form when that happened, right? I mean, right now, trying to get a historical documentary without celebrities that's not true crime greenlit is hell. So there's always effects to these things. And I think where we need to understand is what is our position, what is our strategic position in these conversations. And the reasons why it's so important to be collective and think collectively about this is that's where our power lies, right? So my hope is that with this strike, I think what's going to happen is global is going to become mainstreamed, right? So it's going to be a global business in a way that it never has. But with that also comes problems, right? More money, more problems, right? And so I think certainly with my Realness hat on, a lot of what we're trying to think about and what we constantly talk about is how to position ourselves from a position of strength. And TBTM Studios, the entity I'm now COO of, has technology, is working, blockchain technology that will allow you to remunerate instantaneously. Because here's the thing, guys, I don't care if you're Rihanna, Beyonce, whoever, it's like an 18-month payment cycle from iTunes to your pocket. And there's no need for that anymore, right? So really also using technology, I think there's a confluence of technology and art that can be used to empower us, as long as we're at those tables and we're not scared of it. I used to be very scared of blockchain and all that stuff. Now I've jumped right in, and trying to figure out all of the tools that we now have available to really remake the market. I think that's what's actually happening, right? And it's also we have to get out of a scarcity mentality. I mean, everything we're talking about, all the comments that have been said to this point, and the challenge of the continent, right, is this. It's actually, the pie is way bigger. So how is it you don't get bogged down with what people tell you is available? I think these next steps, certainly economically speaking, is really asking us to dig deep and think about what's possible in a way that we never have.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for going to technology, because I was about to come to AI, which Zoe was already going into. And you're talking about not being scared of this thing. So let's talk about the implications of AI, the use of AI in storytelling. Ayobola and Tracy were having a robust conversation about this yesterday, and we were talking about the fact that, storytelling is much more than just script writing. And there's that journey of not just your characters across a journey or across a story, but even the writers themselves. And I ask myself, how are we to position ourselves, in this? How do we welcome the move? How do I put it now? How do we welcome the move and the introduction of AI into storytelling as writers? Because we're still talking about self-worth. Now you're going to be competing with what? With technology. Are we competing, or is it complementing? Who wants to take that on? Zoe, you were about to go into it before. Zoe.
You go first. You can go first, and I'll go.
So we started this conversation yesterday, sort of informally.
Yes.
And for me, I'm sort of there are challenges with AI, but I would like to see it as an enabler if it is regulated.
Yeah.
And I think that's the main obstacle at the moment, that there isn't regulation around it. And so, if an AI app, if you use ChatGPT to sort of, help or assist write a script or a story, what does that mean in terms of who owns the story, who's the co-creator, credits? There's a whole lot of questions. So I do think that it's such a big subject, AI, right? I'd like to look at it from a positive perspective to see how it enables our journey throughout the film value chain, not just development, story development and writing. But I do think that there's a big issue around regulation, and this is an issue around the world. It's a global issue, and I think this is one of the reasons why it's one of the big issues with the WGA strike, and it's also a concern for us because I think we're also trying to understand what it is.
Yeah.
So I'm still trying to sort of wrap my head around what AI actually is, besides ChatGPT and all these other apps. And I think if you don't know what it is, it's very hard to put a handle on it and to understand it completely.
So how can we be proactive in this journey?
Yes.
No, you
I
can
have
name that.
Jesus. Yeah. I was gonna say, in terms of AI, either way, it's happening. You know, that's the mentality we have to have. Like, burying your head in the sand, it's gonna happen anyway. So we have to just either use it to our advantage or it's gonna take over. You know.
Yeah.
And ultimately, for me, how I see it is something that right now it's absolutely terrifying, right? Like my first time ever on ChatGPT, I sat down, I was like shook. Like this thing like wrote something that like seems so legit. Like who's in there? You know, like who's on the other end of this thing? It's insane. However, like it's I feel like I might expose my age a little bit, but when when the internet came, right? Everybody thought the world was ending, right?
Yeah.
And everybody was like, oh my goodness, like, you know, I was sitting there, I'm like, are kids gonna cheat? You know, when I'm thinking about ChatGPT, it can write your assignment. Like, it's just gonna be a new way of working. Yeah. So the sooner you get in line and start understanding it, interacting with it, the better, you know? It's something that we as humans, we fear change a lot, but unfortunately, like, unless you're gonna like buy a farm and go live there by yourself and start like a little cult there, it's going to happen to all of us, you know what I mean? And it's going to start affecting us. So my mentality about it is if you have fear about it, you just have to face your fears, right? Yeah. Get in there, understand what other people are doing. Don't let it intimidate you. It's a machine and you're a human. Remind yourself of that, you know? And that's the only way that we're going to deal with it. But as Tracy said, it's also very important for us to have solidarity around how to regulate it, because the people on the other end who are sitting there saying, oh, this can cut my budget in half, are also, they're also seeing it for the first time. So it's like we've got to prep what we're doing, and this is our strategy, and this is how we're going to do it, and we have to do it together, because if I'm willing to do it at half the price and use ChatGPT to do X, Y, and Z, and the other person isn't, and then they're just going to go to, you know, like it's going to be divide and conquer if we don't stick together. So, but we also can't pretend it's not happening and not engage with it. So, so that's my position on AI.
Yeah.
Amazing. Dr. Mehret, do you want to say something? Okay, Ayobola?
Okay.
The mic.
Can you, okay. So I think for me, I think the key word is responsibility. Every technology, you know, from the internet to social media, has always demanded a certain level of responsibility, right? From big tech companies and, you know, with the whole data issue, that's why what has been going on in the past like a decade. It's about responsibility with the data, with the information, with what people are sharing on the internet and all that, right? So with AI, it's the same thing. It's about responsibility. How studios and producers and company, how are they trying to be responsible with it? And which is like the bone of contention for the WGA, for example. And we here, we're just watching like, okay, where's this going? Where's this? You know, that like felling a tree and you're trying to see where it's going to fall. Which side is going to fall? Exactly. So that's where we are, trying to see where it's going to fall. But it's the major bone of contention. You know, like that's where the loggerhead is, right? The studios are like Zoe said, it's like, oh man, this is going to help me cut my budget in half, right? Like just impute the data and script ready to go. And writers are like, no, you got to be responsible with this. We have to understand it together and come to a compromise to say this is how it's going to work for both sides, right? And for me, it's just about responsibility. It's about coming together and finding that compromise that works for both sides, where everybody is equally protected and everybody gets to move, you know, in this new way of working.
Amazing. You know, a picture that comes vividly to mind is the film Hidden Figures, where the lady took it upon herself to go learn the coding for the big machine, you know, apparently, and then began to teach others to prepare them for the move that was eventually going to happen. And I think that we shouldn't wait to see what will happen. The question is, how are we going ahead to say, this is our tool? We embraced Final Draft and the other, that was technology at the time. We were using typewriters to script. And then we embraced, you know, all the other softwares that made our job easier. I mean, AI should be viewed that way, to say we can own it. It is technology. It's, I mean, and I wonder if as African writers, we are documenting our journey enough. Dr. Mehret, because I think it's so easy to say, oh, we're just going to put something into a software and it's going to give us all of that. I remember Yolanda was in the US and she was holding this plaque in the protest saying, AI cannot give you Spike Lee. right? Are we documenting our processes enough to show writing a story is human? It's your story, it's the experience that a machine cannot understand. I was talking about how in the past, giving birth, being in the delivery room seemed easy peasy until women began to say, no, it's painful, it's not easy, this is what we're going through, guys come in here as well, see how hard and tough this is. And I think that maybe we should begin to document and share our processes more to realize that how can you possibly write about a character's transformation if you as a writer has not been transformed yourself? And that is such a complex, humane journey that I think that we should not be afraid in terms of using AI or thinking AI can replace us. Or is that naive of me to think that way?
I don't know that it's naive, and then I think you wanted to say something. Yeah, and then I'll give it back. I think, look, AI is here, right? And there's many, and you should learn about it. There's horizontal AI, there's vertical AI. But one thing AI cannot and will never do is replace your instinct, okay? So I think as writers, that's what we need to hold on to. Like the way I look at these technologies now is hopefully it's gonna help us be ourselves even more if we're willing to confront it, you know? So beyond just jumping in, understanding what those differences are, you know? And these things are fast moving and changing. So who knows, 10 years from now, maybe we'll be able to, but I don't think instinct will be replaceable or codable, you know? Yeah. So really holding on, and when you think about what POV is, where you write from, I mean, that's kind of your superpower anyway. That is the whole point, is like to figure out what it is that your take, that makes your take special, right? And I think a lot of that is about instinct, and it's about your set of experiences. But I think what AI is gonna force us all to do is related to what you said about documenting, in that I think we're all gonna have, I hate to use this phrase, but like we're gonna need to have some personal acknowledgement practices in place, basically, right? Of like, how do you even archive what you think of the world? You know, one of the first exercises we do with all of our writers is to ask them to do a writing journal. You know, it sounds so basic, but trying to even figure out, the whole thing about writing is like, you have to figure out what it is you have to say, and you can't do that without having some kind of practice around it. So I do think the kind of Trojan horse, the thing that's behind all of this that will benefit all of us, is it's gonna force us to make those practices much more explicit, because those of us that do that will have things that AI can mine and really start making us productive. I mean, it's shocking actually to see what can happen when you start to collaborate with it on your terms. But you need to also do the work, right? It can't do that work for you. And so I think that's what's interesting to me, because in a way, it's like, it forces us, I think it will force us all to be better writers, actually, if we lean into it, you know? And then, Bongi, I really want to hear what you had to say, please.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we have to embrace AI, because as any technology, you can fight it as much as you want, it will happen. We just have to get familiar to it. But here's my thing, is that even with AI here, there'll still be writers. What we need to fix is that AI is coming into a place where we are in a mess because we are not regulated. We don't have the right laws to say this is what we deserve, and our rights are not heard right now. So imagine when AI is here, how worse it's gonna be. That's my thing, is that I'm not even worried about AI. I'm worried about we are not organized right now. So imagine when AI comes, it's not AI is coming to finish writing, it's AI is coming to make worse what we already have. It's gonna make it look like it's worse. AI is not a problem. The problem is that we are just not even organized right now. As you say, writers who don't even feel like they have a voice. And that is the saddest thing, to know that as a writer, you don't even feel like you have a voice. Imagine when AI is here and taking over, how are you gonna be? You'll be finished. That's my main thing. I don't care. AI can come. I'm still a creative. I'm still human. I'm still better than AI.
Wow, amazing. So let's talk about...
Oh, sorry, I wanted to...
No, go for it.
I mean, I'm of a different view. I'm sorry. But I mean, I'm almost 40. I don't mind saying my age. I grew up on Arnold Schwarzenegger, man. So all I think of AI is I think of Skynet. I am freaked out completely. Because I'm thinking to myself, can ChatGPT give me iconic lines like "I'll be back"? Or what's that Casablanca line? Here's looking at you, kid. So I'm all for embracing it. It's here and da. But to be honest, Siri is here. I don't use Siri. I mean, I talk to Google sometimes, you know, but I still do my thing. So, I mean, AI coming, I just feel like it's anything that's coming is going to come. You will still be needed in what, and to be honest, like, I don't have ChatGPT problems in Nigeria. I'm still trying to sort out my problem at this point, if anything.
Amazing. Mimi, now that you're taking us back to Nigeria,
man.
I do want, you went there, so let's bring this table. There's an issue of recognition, proper recognition in Nigeria that, okay, let me just say Africa. But then I'm going to ask, I'm going to ask actually what it is like on this other side in South Africa. But there is an issue in Nigeria that I've noticed, and that is proper recognition of writers on their own jobs. And I'm talking about, you can literally have a PR material that tells us who the makeup artist is, I respect you, thank you, who the grip is, who, to the list of production crew, but we do not know who the writer of the story is. I'm talking from social media to print materials. You see practically everybody in fine print and no writer. How did we get here, Mimi? How did we get to the point where we believe, it's almost as though a producer feels like they're in competition with a writer. Is this so? What's happening? How did we get here?
Did somebody give you a list of things that would tick me off? Like, as we came to this, did you want controversy? What's going on? Okay.
But maybe you had something like that yesterday morning. I don't know if you want to share that. No, you don't want to.
I mean, I get so angry about it. I'm really trying to. I can't understand why you would not give credit for somebody's work. I don't get it in any form or manner. It is a thing. And to be honest, it's not how we got here. It's always been that. And it's now that people like you are fighting for that recognition. And you are right. It's a struggle. I find, I'll give you an example of what she's talking about. So you would have a big name producer work on this project, and the producer would work with the writer. And to be honest, that person really is acting in the form of a development exec, really. But then the credits come out, and that person's name is first. And then I keep arguing this thing with my fellow producers, and I say to them, like, why don't you give the proper credit? You are not making it easier for the next person that's going to hire this person. Or situations where you do hire writers, but they don't even write it properly, and you end up having to fix it, and you give the person that credit. And then another person is going to hire that person based off that work, and when they go, they're like, why didn't you tell me? You gave the wrong credits. So I don't, first of all, there's a credit issue in itself.
Yes. Yeah.
Then there's a recognition issue, and there's the writer is the bottom line. My worst sentence people say to me is, it's not just to write.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yes, that's an
it's
issue in
the pen of every
Nigeria. Like,
writer.
it's just to write.
Is it
Just
not
write
just
it.
to
What's
write?
it
Do you
to
know
write?
what it
And
is?
we then begin to bestow credits like a favor.
Yes.
Like, oh, I like you, so I'm going to give you, you deserve a credit.
Oh, wow.
And you did do the job. And it's worse when it's your IP. I'm talking about not just commissioned jobs. We're talking about even IP owned. I mean, talking about writers owning their IP and not being recognized.
Yeah, look, I think this has everything to do where the industries are. Every industry and how it grows across the world, I think across our 54 markets in Africa, it's at different places. If you put South Africa on one end of it, Ethiopia way on this end of it, where, so I think it's about figuring, development is never valued appropriately. I don't care where you are, even in the European, even in the American markets and the US markets. We have to kind of take a macro, pull ourselves up and understand we're part of this larger global system where, we're really talking about capitalism, you guys, and how capitalism operates, the extractive part of capitalism, right? So what's happened in the media landscapes, especially in TV, is with the streaming, is that there's less and less episodes now, right? When you think about a writer's room, the development of a writer's room, the development of the economy around TV, you know, it's 24 episodes, like much longer. And what happens with streaming, it's less and less and less and less, right? So that's what I mean about some of this is also a global structural issue around the business models, which is why the strike is happening. It's saying enough, right? We need to reset, revalue. But in terms of our own markets, there's a lot of educating up about like what this is, what it is we do. Like to this metaphor of the painting, the people who are supplying the canvases, like, you know, the writers are the supply chain. It all starts there, right? And so I think the only way to make these changes is to exercise the simplest word, no. Right? And we have to be able to say no together, which is what's hard in our market. If we're going to be really real about it, right? That's what's hard.
Yeah.
When people accept bad deals, we all get screwed. That floor goes lower and lower and lower. So I think it's incumbent upon the older, more successful writers in those markets to really start to be the ones to say no, right? Because it's not fair to ask the young ones that are just like trying to come in and get their first credits to say no. So that's the way I look at this stuff now. And I think that's the only way we can turn from a scarcity model to a different kind of model, right? But in order to say no, this is where the collectives start to get much more powerful, right? We have to start saying no, guys. We have to start walking away from bad deals and bad ways. And that includes sets and productions too, right? When an exec doesn't value what you're doing, okay, nice knowing you, bye, right? Because that's the only way we're going to start changing these things. But it's hard to say no. You know, not everyone can. So I think that's part of how we do it.
I want to jump on with what she's saying. Yeah. Just to add to her point, it's something that I used to talk about a lot when we'd speak about like Swift and women, where like previously it was like very amazing to say, oh, I'm the first woman or the only woman doing this, right? And we're way past that. Like if you're saying that, you've got a problem. You know what I mean? Because it means you closed the door behind you.
Yep.
You know, you made it and you've shut everybody else out. And I feel like it's a similar thing where you're saying it starts with the people who have the power, you know, who have the access, because I can speak about South Africa more specifically. Like, it's like those who are up there feel good. I get paid properly. I don't know about you. You know what I mean? You guys are at the bottom. You guys are getting peanuts. Yeah, good for you. That's what happened to me. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, that's how it starts, you know? You also have to go through the same trauma I experienced in order to get here. But that's a problem. And it doesn't make the situation better for anyone. And so it does begin with the people at the top who have access, who have the open doors to be able to, number one, educate everybody else, be transparent. That's a bad deal, you know what I mean? Because someone coming in who's just happy to write, they can't believe someone is optioning their script and no. They don't know, you know, and they won't know until it's like too late, you know, and then it just keeps going like that. The new guy comes in and he also doesn't know. And then we're just churned out like that over and over. And then those who know like to sit on a perch and like enjoy this, but it's not good for anybody, you know, and it's not good for the greater industry. And so I think it comes down to transparency, you know, and it's a generosity of spirit, you know what I mean? Like, maybe it's not going to benefit me because I'm already getting, you know, and I worked so hard to get here, you know, but it's a generosity of spirit. It's also seeing it as people not as competition, you know? You're seeing people, that's the other problem. It's like, yeah, if that person's also getting, you know, in the same league as me or seen as me, then the job, you know, I guess I have less. Yeah, it's like people trying to get less competition for themselves. But ultimately, that doesn't benefit all of us. You know what I mean? Because the more work, the better work that comes out of any country, the more work and the better work that comes out of Africa, the more work, the more money that we're going to get, all of us, you know. So it's like a rising tide, you know, instead of us working against each other.
I just want to add, especially with what the Writers Guild is doing, is that in South Africa, right now, as Writers Guild, we can't post the rates, the standard rates for everybody, and also how the writers should be credited. But that is why we are lobbying the Department of Labor so that we get the sectoral determination, and then we can start fighting for those things. Because if there's a standard rate, a producer or a broadcaster, they're supposed to do that. If it's law, they will do it. The things that are creating the things that you guys are mentioning is because there's no law into it. In corporate, there's law. In Department of Education, my mom was a teacher, my sister is a teacher, there is law. When you are an entry teacher, you earn a certain amount of money. When you are a school principal, you earn a certain amount of money. Why are we not doing that for our industry? And that is why, as Writers Guild, we are saying, people, come and let's be together. Because if we're together, we will all lobby it into law, and there is no producer that would not do that if it's law. But if we are all talking in the corners, guys, by ourselves, it's not gonna happen, because it's not law. You'll find a desperate writer who wants to eat, and I don't blame them. Sometimes you don't have money for rent. I was there when I was starting out. I'm gonna take that rubbish deal from a producer who's treating me like that, because there is no law. When there is no law, anybody can do whatever they want. Artists, writers, respect yourself, come into the bodies, and then let's do the law, and it will be there. It's happening in other sectors, in other industries. Why are we running away from doing it for ourselves? The responsibility is with us. Otherwise, we'll keep complaining forever. And for me, I always say, I don't want to be sitting with artists and hearing another complaining when they do nothing about it.
Amazing. So what are we doing exactly? What steps should we be taking to breaking the barriers? Exactly. Who should we be talking to? Stakeholders in this industry going forward as a collective. I know you once, Tracey-Lee, you once mentioned that you tried to organize a collective, African collective, between Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, and that just didn't work. What do you think are the lessons from that?
Yeah, that's why I'm surprised that there's a Nigerian Writers Guild.
It's in name. In name,
yeah.
Yes, there is.
Just because I think it was a few years ago, way before COVID, WGSA, I was on council, and we had at Durban Film Art, we decided to start up an African collective. So the Writers Guild of South Africa could connect with a Nigerian guild or a Kenyan guild or a collective in terms of rates, because some of us were working together in writing rooms and teams, and we needed to have standard rates. And it was a real challenge because we don't know the landscape. I don't know the landscape in Nigeria. So I'm trusting that the collective I'm speaking to is sharing that information with me, and they are they are representing the writers. And it became a little bit of a challenge because there were so many different entities and they all had different viewpoints. So there's so many different collectives. And I think that this is the challenge around, coming together, in our communities, in our countries, on the continent. And as Mehret was saying, looking at the bigger picture, pulling yourself out and not getting caught up in the minutiae of hubris and who's, to sort of look at the bigger thing, because I think capitalism is about conquer and divide, and that's divide and conquer, right? And that's the bad, this is the bad shadow side of it. Yeah. And how do you strengthen, how do you even start discussing and having our first meeting as a collective when there's a discussion and an argument or debate about who's the head of the group in a specific area. And I do think we need to deflate our hubris. This is about paying it forward. This is about the collective. This is about Ubuntu. It is about, yes, our own individual careers, but I think we can grow our own careers while we're also developing the collective and finding that balance. I also think just one thing, that if you're getting paid, and this is what I deal with when I'm, when a client or a producer has a tiny budget, right? And they're saying like, look, we need this team to write this project. those writers aren't going to prioritize the project. They're going to take on 10 other jobs because they need to pay rent,
Exactly.
school fees, whatever,
Obviously,
whatnot,
yes.
right? And so
And
I
so the
do think from
quality,
a story
outputs.
perspective, it's very difficult to sort of, because story is immersing yourself, introspecting. There's a lot of quiet moments. It's not just writing words on a page.
Yes.
How do you do that when you've got like 15 jobs you need to juggle because everyone's paying a pittance?
Little.
So that you can live, just survive, not even thrive.
Yeah.
And that becomes a little bit of a, well, not a little bit, it's a huge challenge, right? So you get a really bad outline or a script from a writer, but you understand that she literally only put 3 hours aside because that's the amount of money that's paying for her time because she had to take on like 10, 15 other jobs. And I think it's something that we need to speak to because that's a real challenge that I'm facing in the industry at the moment as well.
Okay, so Zoe, I'm going to ask you these questions because you mentioned it, and now that you're talking about the outputs, the quality that we eventually get, how do we balance creativity and commercial viability, in the industry?
Yeah, so I just want to also speak to what you said before, like what are the steps and the stages based on what Bongi was saying. So definitely the sectorial determination through the Writers Guild is something that, again, is very, like, creatives also like to bury their head in the sand. Like, you hear a word and you're like, oh, sounds too complicated. Like, you have to. That's part of your job. Yes, you're a writer, but if you want to write in a comfortable environment, you have to, like, open your brain and get behind some of these initiatives. You need to sign up to the actual guilds. And these things are not paid. That's the problem a lot of the time. There's no salary. It's like from an altruistic perspective. But you have to get behind it because that's how the industry gets better. I would say the second thing that's very interesting that I think is going to start happening on the continent is representation. That changes the game a lot. Because yes, the Writers Guild will lobby just specifically for South Africa. What the status is why we are not a union like the US. The Constitution does allow for it, but what you need is currently we are freelancers, so no one hires anyone as an employee. So we don't have the same rights and obligations, and that's why we're not a union. So what she's describing, the sectorial determination, is us basically defining what our industry is. Why a teacher has a minimum is because they're an employee of that company. Why a mine worker has a union is because they're an employee. We're not employees, we're mostly freelancers. So we actually have to put that work in and someone has to do it to actually define. But that's the beauty of it. We're being given a chance to define what we do, So it's about us getting involved, and yes, it takes time. Yes, we're already getting paid too little, but you'll keep getting paid too little forever if you don't take the time now to actually help the Writers Guild to build it up. So there's that. There's representation, which I think is also going to play a massive role because once there is representation, then there's more knowledge, and there's people fighting for you on your behalf. And I think that's something that's very exciting because we don't have that a lot in Africa, yet. And then I think a third thing that I want to bring up about who we talk to in terms of who are the stakeholders. Something interesting that I was mentioning earlier was some new players have come in, and they actually are looking after creatives in the sense that they're like kind of saying, okay, I'm paying the producer this much to give to the writer. Before, it used to be like, okay, how much did you give me? And then like, how much am I going to give that person? Scarcity mentality, what we were talking about. Like, so if I'm not getting enough, I'm going to take a cut as a producer from what I give the writer because I'm also trying to eat. So the amounts are just crumbs and crumbs and crumbs until it gets to the bottom, right? But what's happening now is it's almost like what we're talking about self-worth, where the writers aren't even saying it for themselves. It's actually like the players who are saying, okay, make sure if I give you 100 Rand to give to the writer, you give that writer 100 Rand, and I'm checking. That traditionally wasn't happening. It was like the 100 Rand would go to the producer and good luck to the guy who gets 10 Rand at the end, So it's almost like they're instinctively doing it on our behalf, which is a good thing, but we need to be able to have that self-worth to also initiate that. I have a fourth one, but I'll come back to that because I think someone else wants to go.
Yeah. So it was that's similar to what we were discussing yesterday about, in terms of stakeholders, about engaging the streamers, studios, more like as a collective force, more like holding them accountable for this, because this has been a major issue where producers, you get this massive money, you quote this bill, to go to the writer, and when you go to the writer, you tell the writer, first you don't even disclose that, oh, it is this streamer you're working for. You're like, oh, it's just my job. No, I don't have a lot of money, so, if you can just do it for me, I'll just give you this amount. Then you do it, because you're like, oh, well, it's what I do, my passion,
Yeah.
I'll do it, I'll write it. And then later you just discover that, oh, it's a streamer's original. Whoa. Then you now begin to do the math in your head that, okay, what happened there? And producers like, no, that was not the card in the beginning. They just kind of picked it up along the way. There's no money yet made. I mean, we know producers do really, hard work, in pulling money together. No doubt about it. But what we're just asking for is transparency, right? If you have a little budget, and we know that's what you have, we can work with it, right? But when you get the big budget, you should be able to, meet our own demands also to say, oh, I have the money, I can accommodate your fee, I can give you this. But without that kind of transparency, there will never be trust. And when there is no trust, there's no growth. So the issue is just that breakdown of trust, generally in that relationship. So it's threefold for me. It's first, we the writers, we need to first understand what our value is. And like Zoe said, representation will do that. I, as a writer, I hate negotiating. Every single time when it comes to me, I hate it. I hate when I go to a meeting like, what's your fee? Because there's no standard rate, so it's difficult. Right on the spot, after evaluating, okay, what am I going to do on this job? Okay. Do you get? But when there's somebody fighting or speaking for you, someone that's looked at your work and kind of standardized it, it makes it easier. So writers first, and then the streamer and the producers, transparency, to be able to say, this is what I have, and it is truthful, and we can work with that, right? And I say this a lot. You coming to me to tell me you don't have the money is not really my own problem as a writer. It's not my problem that you don't have the money. So technically, you shouldn't just demand of me to reduce my fee because you don't have the money. My fee is this. If you don't have the money, you should be able to make concessions for me that buffers my fee. Okay, I can't give you all this upfront. How do I get it back down the line? Right? Because this is my fee. Why I want to work with you. So how do I get it back down the line? Which is where residuals come in, right? This is where bonuses come in, right? So how do I get it back down the line? Give me something, not just tell me that, oh no, I have this amount, do it. No, it doesn't work that way, right? So it's not my own problem. Go look for the money. And of course, the third level is, the studios, the streamers, just being holding the producers fiscally responsible in terms of what we give you. So when you quote this budget, them ensuring that down the line it translated. Because like we said yesterday, it's good for them also.
Yes,
it's like if you're putting your money into something, you want to ensure that your money is being used for the quality that you wanted to get. So don't let me give you this 10x and you go and pay 1x, then you give me 1x quality, because the writer has to juggle like 10 1x's to make that 10x at the end of the day. Give the writer the 10x and let them be able to create the quality I'm looking for. That's what even justifies your own investment as a producer or as a streamer. So it's threefold for me. And
thank you so much. I mean, a round of applause for my panelists. I'm going to take questions from the audience now. I want to feel the pulse of writers, especially. Perhaps you want to share your experience, in your own look. I see.
All right.
Wow. Okay. All right. So, do we have a mic, or do I need to? Do we have something? Okay. You do? Okay.
Okay, I think we have to give a mic.
Please go for it.
Hi, my name is Sizwe Fortune Zuma. I'm a screenwriter, professional screenwriter, both for the small and the big screen. You said we must share our experiences.
From where, please?
Oh, okay. I write for a lot of like South African shows. I've written for long form which are like
Your country.
telenovelas
Your country.
from South Africa.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we need to
I'm a
know
South
that.
African screenwriter.
Aha, okay.
So in my experience, especially with the big screen, there was one project that I wrote for the big screen. The producer will approach you because we writers are always looking for opportunities. Even though you are constantly working, it's a great pity that we are still living in times where in South Africa, within the South African context, you have to have at least like a minimum of 2 gigs, if not 3, for you to be able to be afloat, to be able to pay rent and live comfortably. So that's why you see like a cross-pollination of different writers for different shows. At 7 o'clock, you see my name. At 8:30, you see my name, because it's just little, like the one X's you were talking about, Ayo.
Yeah.
This producer approached me, gave me a 2-page document, and I turned it into a big feature film that made it to the big screen. And he told me that, no, I only have like so much money. And
that's a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, because I also want my name to be on the big screen and I want to further my career, then I said yes. And then, so the second thing then is, after I wrote the script, they loved it, they produced the film, and then you don't hear from them. And then all of a sudden, I'm looking at the WhatsApp, you see that it was screening somewhere, and I wasn't even told about it. We have a conversation. He says, yeah, no, that one was a pre-screening, blah, blah, explanation. But the next time we have it, I'll call you, we'll invite you. Then you see it maybe after 2 days, and you realize that. So then I started questioning, am I even credited in this thing? Because producers, we writers are not even people, we are typists with our brains and
Now
everything.
you went there.
Yes, we are typists. We're not.
You had to go there.
You know what I'm saying? That's all we are seen as. You are invisible. Then and then I fought. Then it became a back and forth. Now I'm a bad person, right? And it seems like I want more money, and I didn't want money. I just say, okay, I'm fighting for my name because I worked on this thing. You gave me a concept. I gave you a film. So then after that, okay, fine. Then we premiered at one of the big cinemas. And guess what? Everybody had a speech, including the cameos, because they are more famous. What? And then me, it's just like, oh, by the way, the writer's here. Let's give him a round of applause. So what I'm saying is that amount of disrespect that we writers are going through in this country, despite the work that you've done. You can write for everything, you can be known in the industry, but producers do not respect us. So it's one of the struggles that we are fighting. We're fighting for rates. There's stuff that I'm not at liberty to say because we are here to also kind of try to get the streamers. But one thing I can be vocal about is the fact that the budgets that they use for the first world countries, when they come to Africa, they become a fraction of that. But not because of us, also because of our producers. Because when they first came here, they came with these big budgets, knowing that for 1 gig, because in America for 1 gig, you can actually be able to be sustained for the entire year. You know what I'm saying? Just for 1 gig as a writer. So when they came here, the producers were like, no, I can give you 3 productions for that amount of money, or 5 productions. Why so much money? And then they want to reduce us to what we are subjected to, which they are striking for their worst conditions.
Amazing.
Here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. That sounds like back home, and it's amazing to know that this kind of experience. That's why I wanted to know what country you're from, and it's amazing to know that this happens as well. Tracey-Lee, I wanted to ask, in terms of what the guild has done so far, how have you been able to mitigate some of this?
So, I mean, I'm not on council, I'm a member, but are you a guild member? So, did you sign a contract with the producer?
Oh. Ish?
Yeah. So what I would suggest is the Writers Guild is not just a champion for rights. There's also resource at the guild. So there's a legal team, a legal department. If you don't have a contract template, and if the producer isn't sending you something, you can access that for free from the Writers Guild of South Africa, right? And then you also have legal aid that can go through the contract. If you want to make notes or amendments, They can help you with that. And then if he doesn't credit you, and if you want to stipulate that, look, at the screenings you want to be invited because you're also spotlighting your brand, you can add those things in, right? And if he doesn't, you've got the guild. So again, you know, going back to the note around collective, the collective solidarity, having a guild that has your back, that really is important. And you need to know what the guild has to offer. So go onto the website. There are so many committees. There's so much resource for free if you're a guild member. So I think try and utilize that so you don't get into the same situation next time.
Can I speak to that as well? I just wanted to add on to what Tracy's saying in this conversation. And it's something that I always say, like, yes, we're creatives, but we have to push to understand how our industry works. And it might not be that you're a lawyer, you're a numbers person, all of those things. But ultimately, if you want to get far in your career, if you want to be protected, I'll give an example of myself. I studied law because I hated numbers in school, like for a period of time. And then, I mean, of course, I found out that there's a lot of numbers in there too. But it's like, as a producer, I had to shift my mindset to say, well, this is the thing that you want to do, and there's numbers involved. And I just had to educate myself. You know what I mean? I hated Excel. It made me very nervous. But now Excel is my best friend, you know? And because I want to do the fun things, I want to do the creative, I want to do the writing, I want to do that, I have to do, you know, you have to eat your vegetables before you get to the parts that you want. And I do think that as creatives, we also have to take some ownership and responsibility for doing these things. Otherwise, yes, when some bad things happen, it's kind of like, you also did it, we need to take initiative to make sure that we're also protecting ourselves and using the resources that are available. So I just want to push us as creatives, eat the vegetables so that we can get to the fun part. Like, we must know our worth, we must know what needs to be done.
Amazing. And, okay, you're here.
That guy is over there.
Who's got the mic? Okay, sorry, okay.
Hi, I'm Casper. I'm at the moment and in my final year studying at City Varsity in Cape Town. And I just wanted to, if I may, make a mention on using ChatGPT and other AIs. I've dabbled in it for TTRPG games that I run on a weekly basis. But the issue is those programs are only ever as good as the information you put into it.
Mm-hmm.
And as you guys mentioned, there's just something not there. And I was curious because it does seem like there's a split opinion in the panel on at what stage would you guys find using those AI resources? Because they are useful, but only in very specific circumstances. When it comes to the original idea and your final product, that of course needs that human touch. Otherwise, everything just becomes the same.
Yeah.
So I was curious to what level you would be willing to use it.
Amazing.
Look, I mean, I think you've got to play with it and decide how to bring it into your process. I don't think this is a prescriptive thing. I think this is just as creative as the writing process. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually surprised at how much I'm enjoying playing with all the tools, you know? I mean, I think you can think about it from the storyboarding and the art piece of it. There's a lot to play on that end and thinking through, helping you think through a visualizing. So it's more like a brainstorming partner for me right now. At the very beginnings when I'm trying to collect research also on like the things that I'm writing about, so topical. So I mean, this is what I mean by, to me, the Trojan horse underneath all of this is it's going to force us to be much more explicit about what our process is, right? And everyone's process looks different. Like me, my husband's a writer-director, and his process and my process are like over here and over there, right? Like, I mean, so different. And I think these tools are going to allow you to figure your stuff out better, right? I mean, development is notoriously ambiguous because I think it depends on who you are and what that, you know, what that looks like for you, you know? And I mean, you can read all the biographies you want about writers and their processes. I mean, Joan Didion, who's one of my favorite writers, she's like, every morning would come down into her house with sunglasses. No one could talk to her for like the first half of the day. And in my head, I was like, oh, I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. As a mom of 3, I can't, right? And that was her process, you know what I mean? And so I think the fun part, and I think the thing as a writer that's so painful is to actually figure out your process.
Yeah.
And then to repeat it over and over again until it becomes the practice and the habit. All these things you kind of have to do anyway. And I feel like technology at its best should enable humanity, amplify the best of us, right? So often it's like devolves to the worst of us for a lot of different reasons, right? And so I think that's the same thing with these. I mean, it's so many tools at this point, and so I think you just have to jump in and figure it out for yourself and where you bring it in.
Hi, my name's Khalid. I'm from South Africa.
Hi, Khalid.
Hi, I'm the newly appointed WGSA chairperson. So if the guy needs any help, come chat to me after and we'll have a conversation. One of the things actually I want to chat to kind of leans into that, which is I think we're spending too much time trying to figure out the business of writing or develop the business of writing as opposed to the value of writers, because the business is going to change and evolve and move around. And so the producers are winning, to be honest with you, when you focus solely on the development of the business. And I see a lot of panels and I see a lot of workshops based on how to put a pitch deck together and all that stuff. One of the things I really want to chat about, and it's like a big passion of mine right now, getting into the WGSA, is to be writer-focused, writer-centric, not writing business, because the value comes from establishing the value of the writer. I want to ask your personal opinions, and even the moderator, because I feel like you're a writer, because you seem very passionate about writing. How do you guys feel about this disease of pitch writing? Because it's become what every writer is training how to become a pitch writer, a pitch deck. And really that's the job of the producer, not the writer to do. The writer is there to write, not to create a pitch deck that really, now they have to become a designer and they have to become like a layout artist and put together these beautiful structures so that the producer can not do their job, go and take the pitch deck to the streamer or the broadcaster or whatever. They don't get paid for that, because that's usually, you put a pitch deck together, there's no money, there's no job green lit at the pitch deck phase. So where do you guys stand on that? And I do feel like we need to spend more time on writing, like people who are back to writing scripts. And I think that is a big thing, because producers don't read scripts anymore, which is why the quality of the work looks like it does. I know we don't want to say it, everybody wants to be supportive, which is great, and we do, but we have to kind of establish it from the basis of that. So what do you guys think about that?
Can I go first? Okay. So definitely, I would like to say that I believe the proliferation of pitch decks really took a different dimension, a different turn with the streamers. When streamers came in and TV shows came in, and like Dr. Mehret said, the number of episodes reduced and all, and so you have competition increased. Essentially, you're trying to communicate your idea, in the most convincing way as possible. Before you could do this whole piece of document that you don't need to do anything fancy, and they will go through. Now it's like you have to make the strongest impression, and so it now became pitch deck, do it so colorful, so that on the first page they're like, they want to read more, and TV shows really amplified this. So it just drove writers into that. I personally, I hate spending time on pitch decks. I can do it, but it's spending time on it. We're partners, and she knows. And sometimes when we are a client's let's get a pitch deck, and all, I'm like, that's not really my thing. I'm a writer. I just want to write. You're a producer. You want to sell. Pitch deck is a marketing tool, right? You want to sell something. And it goes but a writer also sells, right? We also sell to a producer in a way, especially if you're creating it. You need to convince the producer also. Yeah, so it's I don't know. It dangles, but I don't like spending it. I don't like spending time on it. I just want to write. I want to create a show or a film that's as impactful as possible. And I don't want to spend my time, trying to find the most concise way, to put it in paragraph and, to design it and make it not my thing. So for me, I think that it's part of the conversations we should have with producers to say, don't push your job on me. Don't give me the hard task of creating a pitch deck for this show. My job is to give you like an information about the show. If you love it so much and you want to fight for it, go make your pitch deck and push it to the people who you need to convince. Mine is just to give you the information on my own show, my synopsis. I mean, we used to call it one-pagers, right? It's one-pagers. Now it's like 38 pages of whatever, you know, of pictures and colors and photos and, you know. I mean, so that's it for me, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I'll come from the perspective as a suit.
Yeah.
I don't ask writers to do pitch decks.
Me neither.
I don't.
Like, why would-
I end up
that
doing
doesn't-
it myself. I have a development team. They do it. To be honest, like, if you know me well, my favorite people on any work I do is my writer and editor. I ask them, have you eaten? How's your family? Would you like some food? Are you good? I take them very serious because those are two most important people to me. The director is cool, yeah. But so I don't personally do that. But the thing is, I do understand a writer having to do a pitch deck. But I think it's very important for writers to understand what it is that they are selling and how and the business of it, because you will be screwed over if you don't have it. So to be honest, in my development team, I do have writers. I make them do the numbers. So that Excel thing she's talking about, I make them do it so that they can understand. It's not part of their KPIs or anything, but I just need them to understand that. I understand that you're a creative, but you need to know. If not, you will be screwed over.
Yeah.
And it is important as a writer to give that space, or rather me as a producer or a studio exec or development exec, whatever I'm doing, to give that writer that space. But if I see in you that there's that possibility that you need to know, I'm sorry, we're going to do that together. But that's my own opinion on it. But I don't push writers to do pitch decks. No. Yeah.
What did you say? The funny thing is, it does rather amazing pitch decks. But here he is speaking for writers. You were speaking for writers. You do beautiful pitch decks. I think I have a balanced opinion about this, and I stand with Mimi, because I think that for far too long, we've allowed ourselves to be boxed into just the creative side of things. But the truth is, what we create are products. And you do want, I have a marketing background, all right? So I have a marketing background, and I've been in advertising. Bringing all of that together for me makes it easy for me to combine all of this together, because I have a product I want to sell, right? And so I think it's important to begin to wear those multiple hats, but I'm saying it should not have to be a criteria for being a writer. In fact, when you began to speak, one naughty notion that came to my mind is, should we begin to ask ourselves, you know, and I get these questions a lot from producers who come to meet me, because I staff rooms, right, writers' rooms, and then a producer comes to meet me, or a studio comes to meet me, and they're like, oh, we want writers, and I'm excited, oh, I've got writers, and the next thing they do is, do they have a show on the streamer? And then I just go down. Because what makes a writer a writer? Is it by having their show, their work produced? Is that what makes a writer a writer? Because this is beginning to cause low self-esteem for writers. You're a writer, you've done something on YouTube, you have a short film, you've got maybe on a TV show perhaps, or cable rather, and then someone comes in and they say, oh, sorry, I don't think you're good enough if you're not on Netflix already. That is terrible, and we are enabling that. It is annoying. So what happens to the emerging filmmakers, which is why I love to represent these guys? What's going to happen to them? A writer did not become a writer because the show got produced. The show that got produced was written before it got produced. And so we should respect writers for their craft, and not necessarily because they've not gotten to the face of the journey where the work actually gets produced. So if you create a beautiful product, a car in a showroom, what's it called? I'm looking for a paint, right? A painting, right? Does it become more validated when it gets sold, or before it's did? That is what we are doing to writers. We are basically, we keep, what's the word? Devaluing writers. Just based on, oh, no, you're not on a streamer yet, so you're not a writer. Oh, no, you're not on, this yet, so you're not a writer. What does that even mean? So if I go to a showroom, a car showroom, do I say until I bought that car, it's not a car, it's not good enough? No, we need to do better. And yes, I am a writer and I'm a showrunner. Yes, and I'm passionate about this. And I think we should treat writers better, really. We should. Any other person?
Ah, yes, there was someone there.
Sorry, I'm not going to stand, I'm old. Hi. Sorry, my name is Morgan. I'm a member of the Writers Guild and sort of an emerging filmmaker. And I didn't want to ask this question because I don't want to sound like the Linda Hamilton character in Terminator. And I'm not a QAnon devotee, so this comes from a good place. But I do worry that we are, I think we are being naive. We are being naive and we are being very cocky that when we think that artificial intelligence and ChatGPT won't in time be able to replace us and mimic and do a very good Spike Lee. Because let's admit it, 99% of writers can't be Spike Lee either. None of us can. So, and I think my concern is, because that studio over there, don't tell them I pointed at them, that studio over there and that studio over there have shown a willingness to pay AI experts, people that they are appointing at the moment, more than they're willing to pay their writers. And I'm worried, and this is the question, if we are going to underestimate the risk, remember, I'm not the Linda Hamilton character in Terminator, but if we underestimate the risk of what AI can do, and it's going to be able to replace us, and it's going to be able to take over and undercut us, and it's going to make this issue about writers being valued worse. It's going to worsen that situation. How are we going to get the writers to be concerned about the issue and have it regulated? Because it should be regulated. It's here, and we can't undo that, but it's going to have to be regulated. But how are we going to get it to be regulated when we can't get the writers convinced that it matters? And that's a very real and existential risk to what we as humans think. We are not that special, please, because artificial intelligence is not machine knowledge. It learns the way humans do. It taps into human knowledge. It's an aggregator of human knowledge, just as we are. It may be 10-year-old now. It may write like a 10-year-old now. It's not going to do that in 10 years' time. But it has to be regulated. But how are we going to get people enthused about regulating it when we don't think it's a risk? And again, I'm not the Linda Hamilton character in Terminator.
Thank you very much.
Look, I don't think anyone is saying that.
Yeah.
I don't know why you think we're underestimating, but that's what the strike's about. That's partly what the strike's about. So clearly people are saying, waving a flag saying, we got to do something. And I think it can't just be writers. This is a larger issue. There's going to be many sectors affected by AI, right? And so I think we really have to all band together and say this thing has to be regulated. I think it's a huge issue across the board. So I don't think anyone is underestimating it. I think what we are saying is, you can't afford to stick your head in the sand, that you have to kind of participate in it. But I think this is literally partly what the writers' strike is about. So I think on the continent, we have to all dig deep and do the same thing and ask for the regulations in all the industries.
So I just want to take us back to a point with you on AI, man. I don't know how I feel about AI, to be honest. I need to think deep at this point, so how I feel about it. I did want to say that give more writers a chance. So one thing is I don't judge writers based on films, because I've realized what it is to make a film. Because there are times that the editor just did some amazing editing work and it just kind of worked out, but the writing wasn't that great. I've seen bad scripts turned into good films. I've seen good scripts destroyed in films. So what I always ask for is a sample. And the screening I had at the beginning of the week was a writer who's never written anything before, and he's giving me 2 hit films. So I'm so thankful if I didn't take that chance. So I'm just saying, people in the room, it shouldn't be tied to if the person was a streamer or not. What's that about? To be honest, the people's work that are on the streaming platforms, they probably didn't even do the work. I'm sorry, maybe I'm choosing violence here, I don't know, but I'm just saying, people in the stream, spread that word. Don't judge writers based on just the film. Ask for a writing sample, see what that person can do, and then it becomes a partnership. And that's when ultimately that credit will be done.
Yeah.
And writers need to understand that they have a right in their contracts. And again, that's just something I just want to leave as last words. If anything, to just pass on to the next and the next and the next. Use a writing sample to judge and not how many hits that person. It's your job to make it a hit. It's not the writer's job.
I love that. All right, okay. Do we have any other one? And we have just about 5 minutes left. We just have about 5 minutes. We can probably just take one, and then I'm going to have parting words from the panelists. Anyone? Any taker? You want to do it? Okay. Amazing.
So I would like to add when it comes to the whole AI thing, sorry, I know that you're over it. So I'm from the techno world. And for me, how we look at AI, it's not a factor of, because artificial intelligent means that it's not intelligent, basically. It's, so we feeding it the intelligence, so it gives us the knowledge. So when it comes to us understanding our power as Africans, I think we need to just hold on to that narrative even stronger, because AI really works with everything that is already been fed in terms of data. So Google is data. So we are feeding AI what to do. So we are basically telling AI what we need. And when it comes to that chat GPT, it's really, there's a lot of flaws there, because some of our developers and coders need to do a lot of testing to make sure that the work is accurate. So I think our, when something is new, there's fear. But I think that the best thing that we need to understand is that when we're sticking to work that is authentic, AI can't handle that. When we're sticking to things that are indigenous, AI can't handle that. So we need to just understand our power. Africa is now. So if we are looking at AI as a tool to empower us, we need to look at it in a way that our storytelling needs to be very close to home, instead of preaching the same story, because it knows that story. That's why when you type, it gives it to you so quickly, because it's so comfortable in that zone. So we need to just be comfortable with who we are in order for us to understand that we are the one who are playing the game. It's not AI that is giving us what to do. We are feeding it. It needs data to survive. Without data, it can't survive. It needs data, because data to AI is food.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be very brief on it. I joke a lot, so forgive me, that's my personality, but you're right. It's more of like, I fear what I don't understand. I honestly have not found time to sit down to type anything in chat GPT, so so the reason why I say never is because I don't know it. I can't speak on it. I haven't tried it yet. I mean, she like started and I'm like, I watched her, with the Queen Phoenix. I'm still traumatized a bit, if anything. So I know I ultimately will. But with anything, it's here, it's now. It's just how I acclimatize to it. I didn't know at some point that we would be using escalators, or we didn't know we'd get on planes and we'll be talking to our phones and asking what the time is, if anything. I have a step thing on my hand, so I will evolve. I have no choice but to evolve. I just haven't found the time to do it. That's the truth. And maybe I will, maybe I won't. I don't know. I'm making money. I'm tired. I'm exhausted, if anything. But yeah, I will eventually one day. But maybe like December.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask for final words from my panelists. What would you consider a major breakthrough for African writers in the now? What would you consider that important thing that we can get for us now? What would that be?
Who wants to go first? Okay, I'll go first. I would say for writers, I can speak to South Africa specifically. I would say an actual unionized guild that is properly entrenched within the Department of Labor and supported by the laws of the Constitution that exist, right? The second thing I'd say is a fully funded guild which is actually a major thing that I was saying would be the fourth thing, because like I said, the guilds currently operate on volunteers, people don't get salaries, and so there's only so much people can do when they're not funded. So those two things would be the major things that I would say. And I do have something to say as parting words. I would say for all writers, I think it's really important for us to, yes, you're a writer, but to package yourself and to see yourself within the greater ecosystem. What is it? So a producer sits there and, yes, I can want to produce a certain project, but I also have to look and see what does that person want? Which streamer, which platform does this go to? What are they looking for? And I have to meet that need. So the same thing, writers need to, yes, it mustn't necessarily be the guiding principle, but you need to find the right partners for your creativity. So in terms of commercial viability as well as creativity, there is that thing of, you can't just sit there and say I'm a writer and so that like the work is going to just land in my lap exactly the way I want it. You also need to learn how to position yourself, read what's happening around, and that way you can package yourself better and get better work. So yeah, that's my parting words.
Just to be known as a writer, not an African writer, not a Nigerian writer, not just writer. That's what I hope for the future. If anything, that's me.
I think for me, it's sort of going back to that dream deferred that we started a few years back with, which is to connect writers from all parts of the continent. Even if it's not a formal collective, informal collectives to get talking, WhatsApp groups, Zoom meetings, Gmail chats. I think that really is important. I think the more we talk, the more we share information, the stronger we are. So that's a big thing for me. And I think going back to my first point, that it really is about the writer, the entire ecosystem, the value chain, whatever word you want to use, right? It comes down to the writer starting that process. The writer is the original artist. And I think to understand that is really important, and to internalize it and to share that. And the best way to share that is in a collective, I think. So if you're a South African writer, join the Writers Guild of South Africa. If you're a writer from any other place on the continent, create a collective. Get in touch with writers from South Africa, from other parts of the continent. And I promise you, if we build it, they will come.
Agree with all of that. But my big wish is for us to connect to our ancestors. Our superpower as writers is that we're pulling from a different cosmos. And I think that gets lost a lot when it comes to the market. I think we compromise our stories and our voices, and I understand why it happens, and I'm very actively building different kinds of structures that can protect us. But we have to do the work of connecting back to our ancestors, understanding the ways that stories have been told and the value in bringing and staying true to that when we tell our stories, so that we're not just recapitulating Aristotle or whoever else, right? I mean, there's a much wider, and the source of fiction, the Tuki Bookies, it was always much more inventive, and I feel like we lose this, and I want all of us to dig deep, and find your ancestors, do the work, the research, read about it, find the stories. I know they're hard to find, I know it's hard to see our films, but if you make it part of your craft and part of your practice, you find the ways. So that's what I really hope, because I think on the global stage, that's also the value that no one else can bring.
Okay. All right. So for me, one, it's standardized rates for writers. It's my big dream that writers don't have to always pull figures from thin air. It's my big dream that the rates are a true reflection of what is obtainable in the market, and it reflects the value of the filmmaker in the entire chain. Second is representation. Zoe had mentioned something earlier about representation, but I really, really want to see writers getting good representation. It's part of what we are trying to do to ensure that writers are represented so that their interests are protected. They can go into, like Dr. Mehret said, the cosmos where they're pulling this inspiration from and just focus on that. Yeah, know the business. You know, we've talked about that and all. But in addition to knowing the business, your attention is really about creating that work. All right? Somebody else has your back. Protect your interests, fight for your interests, and ensures that you get adequate, you know, the right remuneration that belongs to you. Those two key things for me.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. It's been an interesting conversation, and I know that the next phase of this conversation will be to, you know, begin to discuss with stakeholders, you know, whether political, the government, and all of that. Thank you everyone for coming. We are really grateful for all the contributions. Thank you to my panelists. Mwah. God bless you.